Amidst applause, President Trump made the announcement today in the Rose Garden that the United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. The U.S. will pull out of a landmark global coalition that claims meant to curb emissions that cause climate change. The move is expected to have a negligible impact on the environment at large, but a very real and major benefit for the American economy. President Trump also stated that he intends for the U.S. to begin negotiations to re-enter the Paris Accord via a new treaty on terms far better American businesses and taxpayers. His decision, in one swoop, eviscerated Obama's top foreign policy accomplishment from his 8 years in office. Image result for Trump out of Paris Agreement. The Paris Climate Agreement was a deeply flawed agreement to the start, and like many things that Barack Obama committed the U.S. to during his regime, legally and constitutionally suspect. It was based on politics, not science, with unrealistic goals that promised to dramatically increase the administrative state and the regulatory burden on American businesses. This is at a time when the U.S. economic output is projected to struggle to achieve even 2% growth. As businesses began to prepare for its potentially devastating impact, U.S. businesses were already more investment toward less productive technology to meet the climate deal's mandates, meaning this was already a drain on the U.S. economy. President Trump's announcement today should have business owners breathing a sigh of relief as a result. Obama unofficially committed the U.S. to the Paris Climate Agreement during the later part of his regime. It was adopted on December 12, 2015. At the conclusion of the United Nations Climate Change Conference. Parties to the agreement were expected to begin taking measures to reduce emissions in 2020, mainly by enacting rules that sharply reduce carbon emissions. Countries are supposed to publicly announce intended nationally determined contributions to combat climate change and periodically report on their progress. The Obama regime had previously announced the U.S. would commit to reducing emissions by 26% to 28% below 2005 levels by 2025, roughly 25% of which was supposed to be achieved by the implementation of the previous administration's legally questionable Clean Power Plan. Obama was quick to offer scathing commentary about this latest reversal of his legacy, claiming that even without the U.S. government, businesses and other countries won't back away. Obama states, simply put, the private sector already chose a low-carbon future, and for the nations that committed themselves to that future, the Paris Agreement opened the floodgates for businesses, scientists, and engineers to unleash high-tech, low-carbon investment and innovation on an unprecedented scale. In order for the U.S. to comply with the remainder of the agreement, major investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and cleaner motor vehicles would be required, which gives you all you need to know about just why this Paris climate deal has been so very popular with many in Silicon Valley and on Wall Street. It promised a plethora of spending and investment, and all at American taxpayer expense, with it practically screaming for things like mandatory self-driving, solar-powered cars. Image result for Trump out of Paris Agreement. By dropping out of the Paris Climate Agreement, the U.S. avoids multiple disastrous effects of the agreement, such as goodbye to American last. The Paris Agreement was basically an attempt to halt climate change on the honor system. As a result, it was likely that the U.S. and other developed, wealthy European nations would have adopted and implemented severe climate change rules. All while many of the world's governments would avoid doing anything that would slow their own economies. The agreement was little more than an attempt for a redistribution of U.S. and European wealth, sacrificing the strongest world economies to the pseudoscience of climate change. Industrial carnage. The regulations necessary to implement the Paris Agreement would have cost the U.S. industrial sector 1.1 million jobs, according to a study commissioned by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. These are jobs the American economy can ill afford to lose in the areas of cement, iron, and steel, and petroleum refining, resulting in significant and sharp industrial decline. Hollowing out Michigan, Missouri, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. The industrial carnage would have been concentrated on 4 states, According to the Chamber of Commerce study, Michigan's GDP would shrink by 0.8% and employment would contract by 74,000 jobs. Missouri's GDP would shrink by 1%. Ohio's GDP would contract 1.2%. Pennsylvania's GDP would decline by 1.8% and the state would lose 140,000 jobs. States that have already been hit to a significant degree in the industrial and manufacturing sectors, smashing small businesses, helping big business. The backers of the climate deal read like a who's who dossier of big business in America, at the expense of small businesses across the country. Companies like Apple, General Electric, Intel, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Morgan Stanley, General Mills, Walmart, DuPont, Unilever, and Johnson & Johnson overwhelmingly supported the deal as they can more easily cope with costly regulations that their smaller counterparts can ill afford, making America poorer again. A Heritage Foundation study found that the Paris Agreement would have increased the electricity costs of an American family of 4 by between 13% and 20% annually. It forecast a loss of income of $20,000 by 2035, continuing the devastating trend of American families paying more while making less. Much poorer. The overall effect of the agreement would have been to reduce U.S. GDP by over $2.5 trillion and elimination of 400,000 jobs by 2035, according to Heritage's study, all of which would exacerbate already existing problems with government funding and deficits, make Social Security solvency more challenging, and increase reliance on government spending to support households. By backing us out of this disastrous job-stealing and economically devastating agreement, President Trump has once again put America and her people first. Therefore, once again eliminating Obama's anti-American legacy and helping the American people dodge yet another bullet. Share this on Facebook and Twitter and let us know what else you think. And don't forget to help support us by subscribing and joining us on Patreon, by clicking on our Patreon link in the description box down below. Let the world know your thoughts on this. AFF helped contribute to this report. Thanks for watching and goodbye from all of us here.